We've all had those certain special TV shows we watched growing up that somehow click with us more than any other shows. But have you ever wondered why those particular shows influenced you and maybe even shaped you all the way through adulthood? That's the topic for today's episode. This is the Kazdoy Closet. I'm Kazdoy. That's my closet full of all the stuff that I love. And today, to celebrate our 150th episode, we're going to go back to our TV on DVD collection, focusing on 3 favorite shows of mine that I watched as a kid growing up in the 60s, and try to figure out also why they influenced me and how they influenced me. Let's check it out. Starting chronologically, the first show I want to talk about that had a big impact on me was one that a lot of people really loved, and that was Leave It to Beaver. This was the sitcom that ran from 1957 to 1963 about a family in middle-class suburbia, parents, 2 brothers, and this clicked with me for several reasons. On a superficial level, it was because the kid who played Beaver, the littlest boy, was named Jerry Mathers, and I thought, my name's Jerry too. I never knew anybody else named Jerry except an uncle who lived on the other coast. So that was cool. And then he had an older brother. I had an older brother too. I had a sister as well, but this show was about the 2 brothers. And the 2 brothers in this show shared a bedroom. I shared a bedroom with my brother for many years as well, except Wally and Beaver, the 2 boys in this show, actually had a bathroom in their bedroom. That to me was mind-blowing and revolutionary because we did not have that. And I think another reason why this clicked with me was Beaver was a little kid and he just did a lot of dumb stuff and got into embarrassing situations and got into trouble. And like most little kids, I could relate to that too. More about those plots later. The parents, I realized later, their characters were both college graduates in this. And the parents, June and Ward, they worked together as a team. They never sniped at each other. They always tried to work it out and came to agreements in a civilized way. June stayed home and catered to the boys. And, my parents always worked, and that's fine. But I wanted, a mom that would stay home also all the time, just cater to my needs. Because, when you're a little kid, 5, 6 years old, the world revolves around you, right? Ward, the dad, he always knew the right thing to say at the end of each episode, the moral lesson and the proper way to live your life. So this is one of the few shows that was from the kids' point of view. The 2 writers in charge of the show, had kids, and they definitely were approaching it from that angle. The parents were there to teach them a moral lesson. Sometimes actually the parents would mess up and they would admit it to themselves. They would admit it to each other, and sometimes they would even admit it to the kids at the end, how they made a mistake and how they were wrong. It's like that was kind of revolutionary too. We also had the 2 boys using a lot of slang of that period, and that was kind of fun to hear as well. So the plots, they included anything from Beaver runs away, Beaver does something at school that he's embarrassed about, Beaver's friends put him up to do something really dumb and he gets in trouble. There's one really good episode where Beaver's invited to a party from one of the girls at school. He doesn't want to go because the girl invited him. His parents force him to go. Beaver goes and it's nothing but girls at the party. We're talking like 6 or 7-year-old girls, and he's mortified to be there. And at the end, the parents actually apologized to Beaver for forcing him to go to this party. So the message overall of this show was, you want a happy life, you take school seriously, you go to college afterwards, you get a good job, you meet a good man or woman, marry that person, raise a family, live a middle-class existence, and you'll be happy. And that's basically the message. The friends of Wally and Beaver also were really funny. They were sneaky. They were kind of dumb. They put them up to do stupid stuff, or they did stupid stuff themselves. So that was fun as well. So this is the first season, 39 episodes. So seasons back then, they were long, not like nowadays, right? And there's, I think, about 6 discs on here. And no extras except there's an original pilot which had a different actor playing Ward and playing Wally. And you can, buy this. You can buy separate seasons. There was a box set of the complete series that's going for quite a bit now, I think. I think it must be out of print. I think it's for about $100 you can find it for. But otherwise, you might be able to get this at the library. You probably, I'm going to assume, can find episodes on YouTube. And if you have Peacock, I'm not sure if you need the subscription version of Peacock, but from what I found out is they are showing Leave It to Beaver on Peacock. So Leave It to Beaver, kind of a safe choice. But the next choice is a little more off the wall. Keeping to our chronological order, the second TV show that had a big impact on me really has a special place in my heart, and that is Beanie and Cecil, the cartoon series. And this is from 1962. Now, Beanie and Cecil actually started as a puppet show, a live-action puppet show on television called Time for Beanie. And one of the most famous fans of the puppet show was Albert Einstein. He would actually cut short some of his lectures or some of his meetings because he said he had to go back to his home or back to his office because it was time for Beanie. Because this show operated on two different levels, for adults and for kids. Stan Freberg was one of the geniuses behind the show. I was a huge fan of his. You don't hear much about him anymore. He started with a radio show. I was too young really to be into radio shows, but I did get records later of radio shows and listen to them. And he also had a couple of hit comedy albums as well. And he went on to basically invent using humor in advertising. But the main guiding force behind Beanie and Cecil was Bob Clampett, who used to work with Warner Brothers Animation but quit to move from Time for Beanie to the cartoon series Beanie and Cecil. This is the adventures of little boy Beanie, a captain. They're on a boat and they go to different places. And then Cecil, he's the seasick sea serpent. And he's also called Your Obedient Serpent. And then the villain was Dishonest John, also known as DJ. And his catchphrase was nya-ah-ah. And there were a couple other catchphrases here as well. This was filled with satire, puns, wordplay, social commentary, political commentary, sarcasm. That's a lot for a cartoon series. And I'm sure a lot of it went over my head, but a lot of it didn't because, like I said, it was for adults and for kids. So it was a natural progression from this to Mad Magazine and then later on to National Lampoon Magazine. But there were things I understood. They had a couple of cartoons called Beanie Land, and that was making fun of Disneyland. And it was like, wow, what a concept. You can make fun of something like Disneyland or make fun of other cartoons, a cartoon poking fun at other cartoons. And these jokes were fast. They were not just single jokes. They were rapid fire. So sometimes you would miss them if you weren't paying attention. They also had Super Cecil. So he was supposed to be, and he wore a cape sometimes. So they're making fun of Superman. It's like, wow, you can make fun of superheroes too. This is like a whole new world to me. Beanie wore a little beanie on his head and with a propeller on it. And Bob Clampett, the creator, actually got the idea from seeing kids going to temple and wearing yarmulkes, and he said, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then he put a spinner on it, and it was a fad for a while. Kids would wear beanies with little propellers on it. A lot of wordplay in here, like I said. They would go to certain places, like if they went to Egypt, they would show a map and it said the Looney Tombs. Or they would go to an island called the No Bikini Atoll. They had various characters that were wordplays, like Terralong, the Dotted Lion. Or they would have a beatnik character named Go Man Van Gogh, who played the bongos all the time. And another character, Jacques the Knife, that was supposed to be like Mac the Knife. And so they used a lot of jazz and classical pieces in some of these episodes as well. And then, like I said, they would do satires of things that kids knew. Like they had one called Malice in Blunderland. And they had another one called The Voyage of Singood instead of Sinbad. So, I picked up on all that, and wow, this is great that you can make fun of this stuff. It's just totally, changed the way I could look at things. So This is Beanie and Cecil, the special edition. It's actually volume 1. It only has 12 cartoon episodes on here, and it has 4 Time for Beanie episodes, the puppet show. Pretty bad quality, pretty hard to watch. I really couldn't get into that. I was more into the cartoon, of course. And then there's some commentary and some different features about the creators. Now there's a second volume that is really hard to find. This one you can still find for about $65 or so. I paid $20, but it's out of print, so it's really difficult to find. But I mean, you can find this one if you want to pay that much. The volume 2, I've seen it going for over $150. My fantasy is to find that somewhere, like at a garage sale or a Goodwill or a thrift store. They don't know what it is, and I can grab it. I would love to have the second edition, but I'm definitely not paying $150 for it. So if you're curious about Beanie and Cecil, or if you watched it as a kid and want to check it out again, there are episodes on YouTube, and boy, that's a real wormhole, because I started watching them and I could spend hours watching these things again. Think about something like Bullwinkle, Rocky and Bullwinkle, and maybe George of the Jungle as also funny kids cartoons that adults like too. But I think this one is more clever, more rapid fire, and just more humorous, really, and more satirical, like I said, and the puns and the wordplay, if you really like that kind of stuff. And I've liked that now all my life. So it's possible Beanie and Cecil instilled that in me at a very young age. Our third and final choice for TV shows that really had a big impact on me growing up is Fireball XL5, 1962 to 1963. This takes place in the year 2062. Colonel Steve Zodiac is in charge of the flagship spaceship Fireball XL5, and he explores new worlds and new civilizations and new aliens. It might sound familiar to Star Trek fans, right? This is one of those super marionation shows that was developed by Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, a British couple. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's marionettes performing all this stuff, but not marionettes like you would go to see typically. They're pretty sophisticated. Their eyebrows go up and down, their eyes move. And if they're in trouble, sometimes there'll be a close-up of one of them and they're actually sweating. Or if there's reaching out for something, you'll see it'll cut to a human hand with a glove on, taking something. But otherwise, the strings are there. They don't hide the strings at all. They're marionettes. They're actually electronic marionettes, and the voices were done by actors, and they were synced in later. So the marionettes were synced to pre-recorded dialogue is how it worked. Think about something like the film Team America, World Police, which I think was an homage to shows like this, Fireball XL5, making fun of them, but also I think in a sentimental way, in a way to honor them as well. Later on, they did several other shows, this couple. Most memorably, probably Thunderbirds, which was in bright, beautiful color. This one's in black and white, unfortunately. So why did this thing influence me? Well, I'm thinking that maybe this was my first exposure to science fiction. And I did have the Fireball XL5 playset. I remember that distinctly. And I would play around with that. But this showed me kind of like, well, what could the future be? Or let's imagine what a future might be with weird planets and aliens and all kinds of creatures and adventures they go on, and spaceships and UFOs, flying saucers. I used to draw flying saucers all the time. Kids always end up drawing something over and over again, seems like. My jam was drawing flying saucers all the time. There was also a robot character whose head was transparent and would light up when he talked, and had like a mechanical voice to it too. That was pretty cool. And also the characters would drive around on jetmobiles, sort of like the hovercrafts that they had in Star Wars, where they're like scooters, but they're above the ground. They fly above the ground. And so I thought that was really cool too. And it turns out they did that so they didn't have to have the marionettes walking so much. They just put them on one of those things and then have the strings carry around the jetmobiles, which is kind of funny. So who knows? Maybe this is why I eventually ended up teaching science fiction in high school, all because of Fireball XL5. It's possible. So what's on this disc? This is the complete series. It's, I think, about 5 discs. There's about 8 episodes on each disc. There's a couple of extras. There's an interview with the creator, Jerry Anderson. There's a look behind the art of it. A couple of commentary tracks. There's also, this was only like $20 or so. It kind of comes and goes on Amazon. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. You might be able to find it somewhere else. There's also like a big deluxe version of it, which was way too expensive for me to buy just for nostalgia's sake. It's kind of weird watching them again, actually. Some of the plots are more involved than you would expect for a kid's show. You can also see this on Freevee, which is part of your Amazon Prime streaming service, and there's no extra charge for that. And I've also seen episodes on YouTube. So that's for Fireball XL5. Anyways, there's 3 shows that I have that had a big impact on me, and I'm sure you have your own. Feel free to share those in the comments section below here, or maybe you're familiar with some of these. I assume I'm not the only person familiar with these things. Leave a thumbs up. Don't leave a thumbs down. Subscribe would be great. Share this with your friends and neighbors. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for getting me to 150 episodes. Really appreciate it. And hope you like this one. And I will see you next time.